You're listening to the DC Comics Chronicles, where we cover every adventure from the streets of Gotham to the skies of Metropolis and into the depths of Atlantis. With your hosts, Adam and Chris.
Welcome to another episode of the DC Comics Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And my co-host, Chris. Chris, how's it going?
Doing great, Adam. Having an excellent end to a good week. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's always fun to talk with you about anything we talk about, but this week it's DC, and more specifically, my personal two favorite DC heroes, Batman and Superman. So it's always a good time. And I understand that it's a holiday weekend for you guys in the U.S. Memorial Day, right? It's this weekend, right?
Yep, lots of boats on lakes, lots of grilling out hot dogs and hamburgers, lots of going to the beach for the long weekend. So yeah, it's a day to remember those who sacrificed their lives in the military. So that's what takes importance. But for a lot of people, it's just a day off work and a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, no, we have that in I guess it would be November, and we call it Remembrance Day, but I gather it's roughly the same jazz in terms of what it's supposed to be about, and then it becomes everything else it is. But regardless, enjoy the long weekend and honor those that deserve to be honored, is what I say to all our U.S. listeners. And as we always do when there is some news, we talk about news. And recently, WB Discovery had their upfronts, which is typically more for TV than movies, but through that we got some details of what exactly David Zaslav has planned for DC, where Warner Brothers is concerned. I think I mentioned I talked about this when I was on with Donnie, I remember. But recently they've canceled Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow.
Yep.
And what we've come to find out is that the big boss at the CW wanted to keep those shows going, but the combined current ownership of the CW, which is Warner Brothers Discovery and Viacom/Paramount, no longer wanted to pay for the renting out of the sound stages for those two shows. So that is why they were so abruptly ended without a final. Because usually the CW likes to give, their ending shows a proper final season to wrap up. That's why this isn't the case this time around. It's unfortunate, but given the fact that the CW is up for sale, and the fact that both Warner Brothers Discovery and Viacom and Paramount have their own streaming services, why do they need, the idea of a shared network becomes redundant,
right?
So you can see some of the casualties happening. It's unfortunate for the fans of those shows. I would have liked to see Batwoman if it was gonna end, get a proper ending or continue, because I think it did pick up steam ever since Javicia Leslie took over in the lead role. I'm personally not a fan of Legends anymore. I used to be, but so that doesn't affect me. But I understand from the fans of those shows how you would be, disappointed by the cancellation. But unfortunately, this is the nature of the beast. And then when you compound things with the fact that not only is the CW for sale, Warner Brothers has just merged with Discovery, and with new ownership often comes decisions of, well, we want to chart our own path and create our own shows and our own product, and so as much as we can purge of the remnants of the old ownership, they will, and that seems to be a combination of factors here. What are your thoughts on just those shows coming to an end? I mean, I know we still have Superman and Lois, which, I mean, they're not going to cancel that because that's one of the most popular shows they have, and when it does go to HBO Max, it does do very well there. The Flash is probably going to end with this upcoming 9th season, and Stargirl has another season that has already been filmed, so that is going to at least go for the next season. So what are your thoughts on the cancellations, and what do you make about that?
Well, it's a bummer that it did happen so abruptly. With other shows, specifically Arrow, they were able to bring it to an end on their own terms and write the story that they wanted to end it. So it's unfortunate for the fans of those shows and for the people who work on those shows that they're not going to have that closure where these two shows are concerned. You mentioned Flash is probably coming to the end of its run. I don't think that has been officially stated yet, but
it hasn't.
A lot of people are saying that in the industry. Hopefully, it doesn't mean anything for Superman and Lois, but like you mentioned, the network is up for sale, and these companies do have their own streaming services now. So, would it be possible for Superman and Lois? It's already being shown on HBO. After all the episodes have aired on CW, I mean, they could just transition the whole show over to HBO.
Oh yeah, I think if CW is ultimately sold to another entity that is not Warner Bros. Discovery, I don't think they're going to keep one of their most popular IP on somebody else's, channel. And again, I just don't see them abruptly cutting Superman and Lois off at the knees because it is so successful. When it goes to HBO Max and quite frankly, on the CW itself. So what I think will happen is once that sale does occur, whatever is left over and survives, i.e. Superman and Lois, possibly Stargirl, depending on how things go this season, then I think those will just transition over to HBO Max. So that's one bit of news that we've kind of gotten more info on. Also, that I discussed with Donnie a while back briefly. I don't think we did it on air. I think it was more. But you still there with me, Chris? I think.
Yep.
Just cut out for a second. We'll carry on. The other thing that was sort of revealed recently is that about less than a month, maybe after casting the lead roles, the Wonder Twins movie that was supposed to go to HBO Max the plug has been pulled,
right?
And that movie is no longer happening. And inside sources, I believe, it was either with Variety or The Hollywood Reporter, one of the major trades, reported that when David Zaslav was taking sort of stock of some of the projects that were getting ready to start filming, he looked at that project and the $75 million budget, and he surmised that making a DC movie for that cost, strictly for HBO Max, would not garner enough subscriptions. Like that project alone would not garner enough subscriptions to justify spending the $75 million. And so that's why the plug was pulled on that. And apparently, according to these inside sources with this report, David Zaslav has a new mandate that all DC movies will go to theaters first. I mean, they'll still have that 45-day window, but they won't be made exclusively for HBO Max. They are going to be theatrical. And so that leads, because that leads me to believe that Batgirl
Right.
is going to get a theatrical release because there's no
Exactly
way
the first thing I thought about when I
yeah,
heard the news.
there's no way they're going to pull the plug on. I mean, it's done.
Right.
Batgirl has the Batman IP associated with it, so it has a lot of money making potential. And when when you factor in Wonder Woman and what Wonder Woman did in theaters, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say Batgirl is on the same level as Wonder Woman, but she's not that far behind. I think in mainstream general public uh, awareness and popularity. You know what I mean?
Well, she's been in the public awareness since
Right.
1966.
Yeah.
That's 56 years ago.
Yeah.
So people know who she is.
Yeah.
And the connection with Michael Keaton's Batman should put a lot of people in theaters too.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, because it has the Bat brand, you know, it's Batman adjacent, if you will, and it does have the nostalgic returning Batman. Yeah, I mean, you could bet Zaslav is putting that in theaters and expects that to be a big hit. What do you think of this quote unquote supposed mandate that all DC movies are required to be theatrical first?
I mean, if you're going to put it on your streaming service anyway, why not try to make the money off of theater ticket sales that you can before putting it on your streaming service? It's unfortunate for some of those like mid-tier movies, like a Wonder Twins, that's going to get cut by the wayside. But hopefully, this means that we're going to get a chance to see things like you mentioned, Batgirl and even Blue Beetle on the big screen.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know if you saw, Chris, but recently the image of Xolo Maraduena, I think is how you pronounce it.
Maraduena, I think. Yeah.
I dig his first name. That's why I like to try to say the name. It's just so unique. But anyway, the first images of him in the costume, in the armor, if you will, have leaked, and I've got limited experience with reading Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle, but from the books that I have read of him and the appearances I have seen, that is picture perfect with the comics.
Looks great.
It looks fantastic. And usually some of these sort of leaked images, they look kind of wonky because they're on set. And I mean, this thing looks good as is. Imagine when it's, color corrected and
there's actual
filters.
lighting and stuff and a set behind it, and it's not just from an elevated position somewhere off in the distance. No, I agree. It looks really good. I'm excited about the actor. He's great on
Cobra Kai,
Cobra Kai. And man, I'm excited to see this. I'm pumped.
One of the things I want to get your opinion on is with Zaslav kind of taking that stance of, I know you said it specifically for movies, but I'm thinking with the proposed Green Lantern HBO Max show, that was going to have a budget of around $100 million for the season.
Right.
That's 10 episodes, $10 million an episode. Do you think with Zaslav's kind stance of, because he's got, according to the report, he basically wants, because there was a Clint Eastwood movie that Warner Brothers recently made that they basically made as a favor to Clint Eastwood, like they put into production as a favor to Clint Eastwood. And apparently Zaslav was very upset by this because it didn't do well. And he basically sat the executives down and said, we don't do favors. Basically, this is show business, not show favors. And basically, unless you think something is going to be a surefire hit, you don't just randomly greenlight it as a favor to someone. So with that in mind, plus his DC, he wants hits. He basically he seems to be keying in on the top tier DC characters, and basically cutting the second and third tier to the side. I'm not saying Green Lantern is third tier. I think they're top tier. But I'm with all that we've kind of with all that's being said about Zaslav. Do you think he scraps the show and just transitions the Green Lantern IP to focus on a movie?
I really hope not, because it seemed from the comments that he was focusing specifically on movies.
Yeah.
And with HBO's track record, if you give them the kind of budget for this show like you gave them for a show like Game of Thrones,
yeah,
I mean, just imagine how epic it could be. So I guess I'm reading between the lines, since he didn't mention the shows or that property. I'm hoping that it's safe, but we haven't heard a lot of movement on it since it was announced. We haven't heard anything about any actors being attached to anything.
I mean, we have
date.
three already, actors kind of already in place, but nothing since. You're right, in terms of officially, but yeah, that's one that I hope sticks, because I think that IP is big enough for both a series and a film. And your example of Game of Thrones is perfect. I mean, those seasons were about 100 million, if not more, and you can't tell me that didn't drive revenue for HBO and Warner Brothers. So, yeah, I like I said, I hope that he doesn't penny pinch in that area. One thing I will say about Zaslav is that anytime he speaks of DC, he really wants to make it a focal point. He really wants to get the most out of the brand as possible. So that's a good thing. But to be fair, I would have watched Wonder Twins had it come out.
Sure.
But it wasn't something that I was like, oh my God, I'm counting down the days.
Right.
Until the Wonder Twins movie. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I'm not utterly devastated by the news.
Had he done that with Batgirl, I would have been pissed. But
maybe this convinces them to get a Superman sequel or reboot or whatever fast track.
Well, I think Superman is going to benefit regardless, whether it's a sequel with Cavill or a reboot, because one of the things that we know that he when he took over, I think one of the articles mentioned that he is very he believes that Superman has been left on the bench, so to speak, and he wants that to change.
Yep.
And he basically specifically said it's time to revitalize Superman. So I think Superman is probably going to come out, in the grand scheme of things, when things shake out, probably in the best position, regardless of whether it is as some sort of sequel or continuation of Cavill or something new. I'm leaning more and more every day until I see otherwise. It's going to be something new, just because they're going to look at Batman and say, "All right, look what that did. Let's do that." I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and if Cavill's back, I'll watch whatever Cavill's in. But that's just the way I'm leaning right now. So I'm pretty sure that when all's said and done, Superman is going to benefit from Zaslav being at the helm, because that seems to be a character that Zaslav wants to key in on, and all this supposed, like, apparently his mandate about DC films only going to theaters first was in large part due to the Batman success and the fact that it also had success on streaming. So that combo of being in theaters first, doing your business, and then doing more business on HBO Max convinced him that was the way to handle DC properties. So So anybody that wants to tell you online, any shysters, as the old turn of phrase says, that wants to tell you that Batman was not successful for Warner Brothers Discovery, you could just throw their stuff in the garbage, because that is clearly not the case, obviously.
I saw it twice in theaters, and I've probably watched it like 4 or 5 times on HBO.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times already. Now that it's available on home entertainment, so yeah, and I'll definitely. I think that'll be at minimum a once a year revisit for sure, for me. But I think that's pretty much all the news we have for this week. So we will take a quick short break, and then when we come back on the other side, we are going to do Batman Superman World's Finest issues number 2 and 3. So stay tuned. We will be right back. I'm your host, Adam.
And I'm the Emerald Enthusiast.
And for all your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows.
That includes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Masters of the Universe, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Comics Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast.
All right here on YouTube and Podbean. From the first podcast and vidcast to the last. And we're back. All right, Chris, when we last did a comic review, I'm pretty sure it was issue 1 of Batman and Superman World's Finest. Since that time, a DC comic review. We did
Right.
TMNT The Last Roman, which is up on the YouTube channel if folks are into the TMNT and want to check that out. But the last DC book was the Batman and Superman issue 1. And since then, the issues 2 and 3 have come out. So it's time to check back in with the heroes of Gotham City and Metropolis. So, Chris, where did we leave off, and what's happening in issue number 2?
Okay, well, we left off in the end of issue 1 with Superman having been poisoned by a red kryptonite cocktail that is causing his body to go through all sorts of transformations, and he has been brought to the home of Dr. Niles Calder of the Doom Patrol in order to see if Dr. Calder can help him. At the Calder mansion, Dr. Calder and Robot Man work to rid Superman's body of the red kryptonite cocktail with which he was infected in issue 1. They are able to use Negative Man's powers to purify Superman's blood from inside his body. While Superman recuperates, the Doom Patrol tells him, Batman, and Robin about the legend of the Devil Nezha, an immortal being of Chinese descent who has likely been released from imprisonment. Dr. Calder reveals that he has remote cameras tracking both heroes and villains, and the team splits up to handle different threats, with Superman and Batman traveling to Philadelphia to take on Felix Faust, who is tormenting young Billy Batson. Supergirl and Robin leave on a mission to investigate the Devil Nezha and somehow break the time barrier and end up in the past in China. The issue ends with Faust telling Superman and Batman that Nezha is building a terrifying army, and in return for his followers' devotion, he grants them mystical powers and seeks only to see his enemies burn in hell for eternity.
Right. So I gotta be honest. The opening few pages with Superman, under the knife, having the kryptonite removed, is a striking scenario and striking imagery, because at least in my 10-year reading, I haven't seen that all too much.
Nope.
I mean, I've seen him die.
Right.
I saw that. We saw him resurrect, but that was in large part due to the wasn't the Eradicator?
And the Kryptonian regeneration matrix.
Yeah, so there wasn't much surgery
right
involved there. So I think this might be if I'm trying to recall, but I think this might be the first time I've ever seen Superman in the comic books anyway undergo some sort of surgical operation or procedure, and there are moments there where what I think accentuates that series of events so well and puts importance on it and makes it shocking is that you could, via the awesome art by Dan Mora, you could see the concern at one point on Batman's face. Even he's not sure. He's like, is Superman going to make it through this? So that was a very impactful start. And the art really, I mean, because in large part, it's just Niles Calder, going through, basically talking through the surgery, and then things go wrong, and he starts calling in Negative Man and all these things. But really, what sells it is the art of Batman's reaction to it. And I like how, as the surgeries happen, we get a lot of a little bit of interaction with Robin and Rita, and basically Robin's just freaked out about all the weird stuff that he's seen in Dr. Calder's mansion, which is, I think that's important for me because it shows that, at least in the time frame that we are in this, issue, in this continuity, Robin is still quite young. I mean, he's not an 8-year-old, but he's a teenager at best. And his reaction is very much appropriate for a younger hero who is sort of really out of his element in this setting here. So what are some of your thoughts on that? Both the surgery and Robin's kind of reactions.
The surgery, like you mentioned, it's probably the first time we've ever seen this. Like we literally see Superman's heart.
Yeah.
It is shown to us in a panel on the first page of the issue. There has to be the proper mixture of green kryptonite when he was exposed to it by Metallo in the first issue, and red kryptonite, which is why Dr. Calder is able to pierce his skin. That's something that you usually don't see because no instruments are supposed to be able to break Superman's skin.
Right.
Robin is freaked out about being in this mansion and around all this like magic nonsense, as he puts it. He uses that exact word. But I really liked the way it's portrayed here. You pretty well laid out the whole first third of the issue. But it's, and you mentioned Batman's look of concern. Like, it's hard to show emotions through a drawing of a character wearing a mask, but you really get the sense that Batman is concerned about Superman, and then you see the relief on his face when he's smiling after Superman wakes up. So that just shows you how close they are.
I did like that bit about Batman smiling, where Rita's like,
You accuse us of looking
Batman
spooky.
smiling? And Robin's like, yeah, it happens from time to time. And she's like, and you think we're creepy?
Yep.
That was funny. I love how Batman smiling disturbs everybody. And then, in terms of the time travel aspect, which you mentioned in the summary, that was unique, and I love Robin's comment when Batman's like, "Okay, Robin, you have to go back in time and figure out how they, in the past they, got rid of Nezha, right? And so, and he's like, oh, I left my bad time travel device in the other, in the other costume or the other utility belt or whatever.
And
And
Robot Man's like, do you really have?
yeah, and he's like, no. But the funny part about that was it was clearly a nod to the '60s Batman,
Sure.
which again this book has done now 2 issues in a row.
And if this were a Batman 66 book, you could see that being an actual real line of
Yeah, it would
dialogue.
be an actual device. Yeah. Um, and then so to facilitate the time travel, Superman calls in Supergirl.
Yeah.
Um, and I on one hand I get it because she can travel so fast that she can break the time barrier, and then she made some in terms of how it works. She made some reference about the sword and the you can track its history as you're going through time at those speeds. It was some high end sci-fi explanation that you just have to roll with because time travel and
She
comic books.
says everything on Earth leaves a
Yeah.
tachyon trail, and if you know how to look with X-ray vision, you can track the path of it.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So there's that. Again, I don't know. I mean, this isn't a Christopher Nolan version of a Batman and Superman, so we don't have to have the time travel make any sense. But what was interesting is the sort of banter between
Supergirl and Robin.
Supergirl. I was going to say Batman and Robin, but it's Supergirl and Robin. It seems to me, I mean, they were kind of argumentative with each other,
Right.
and it seems to me that they have kind of been in some sort of relationship.
Right.
So what do you make about?
I got that vibe as well. She even says, well, first off, something is really chilly between the two of them when they first meet before they are even sent off on their adventure. But then when they are on their adventure and they're flying, they're going back and forth, kind of like arguing. And Supergirl just says, I did not flirt with the server. So obviously there was an event in the past in which Robin thought she was flirting with the server and got upset about it.
Yeah.
But I really like creating that history between the two. There are two characters that I really enjoy, so it's cool to see them have that banter with each other. But I think it adds to this comic as them being sort of the B team while they're off doing their own, working on their own end of things while Batman and Superman are taking care of their end of things. So I really like the relationship between the two, or at least as much as we are shown here.
Agreed. And what did you make of the whole use of Felix Faust and Billy Batson? To me, it made sense because you need something for Superman to be susceptible to,
right?
And that's the purpose it serves. So is there anything else specific that you want to touch on?
Not really. You bring up Faust, and him using, that's how using Faust because Superman is susceptible to magic. We will find out in the next issue how Nezha knows that about Superman.
Yeah.
So we can leave it there and move to the next one if you want.
All right. So let's go ahead and rate this first.
Okay.
So remember we do 4 or 5 scales of 5. For both writing and art. So go ahead and give us your rating.
Okay, artwork, I'm giving this a solid 5. Everything from the time travel to Faust to you mentioned the surgery on Superman. I think it's all really well done here. We didn't mention the creative team here. This is written by Mark
Yes.
Waid with art by John Mara. Is that correct?
Dan.
Dan Mara. That's right. So the artwork by Mara is top notch in my opinion. The story on this one, I'm going to give a 4. I think I had more problems with the time travel thing than you did. I was like, oh, Supergirl can just do that now, just travel through time to any time she wants to go. That's new.
Yeah.
So I'd dock it a point for that, but I mean, still, I'm giving it a 9 overall. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, I did have an issue with the time travel. I wish they would have had another way of going about it. It doesn't make sense how she has that ability all of a sudden. But it did bother me too.
And the other issue I had with the story was like, it was weird that when they show Supergirl and Robin flying together, neither one of them is holding the sword. Supergirl has both arms full carrying Robin, and Robin just has his arms crossed. And then all of a sudden, they have the sword and they're following its tachyon trail. I wish that when Batman sent them off,
Robin should have been holding the sword the whole time.
He should have been, but I wish Batman had been like, "Hey, take this sword. You're going to need this." I wish they had set it up that way. But
Yeah.
Still, those are nitpicks. That's out of a 20-something page issue, that's not a lot.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and give it. I'll give it a 4 as well for the story and the art for those inconsistencies but the art is 5. The art is top notch. So we're both on the same page there.
Cool.
9 out of 10. Okay, not bad at all. I think most books would be happy if you give them a 9 out of 10. So
right.
Most creative teams would be thrilled by that.
And it left me wanting to read the next issue pretty much immediately, which is always a good hallmark of a good issue.
And I agree 100%. So speaking of that next issue, we were able to read it because we waited until we had 2 issues. Not on purpose. It was just the way things worked out. But So go ahead and give us a summary of what's going on here.
Cool. Batman, Superman, and Billy Batson are trapped in an illusion of hell created by Faust. Superman punctures the illusion as well as Faust's skin by throwing a batarang into his shoulder. Billy is momentarily possessed by the devil Nezha, who warns Superman and Batman that they and their kind will fall at the hands of his soldiers. Batman remarks that the Doom Patrol is still searching for Nezha's tomb, and we meet up with them in the mountains of Switzerland. They find General Immortus, who appears not to remember the Doom Patrol or their many battles. But he does remember the devil Nezha, whose tomb he says is located on an island off of Porto Maltese. Next, we see Supergirl and Robin in China in the year 1579 BC. They are battling the warriors of G, who believe Supergirl and Robin are allies of Nezha because they have his sword. Robin and Supergirl explain that Nezha has reappeared, and they seek knowledge of how to defeat him. Superman and Batman travel to Central City, where Flash is trapped in a mirror dimension by Mirror Master, and Wonder Woman has seemingly been turned to clay by Dr. Alchemy. Green Lantern appears and, seemingly controlled by Nezha, uses his ring to construct a prison around Batman and Superman. Wondering how Nezha even knows who they are, Batman places a call to Alfred to see if anyone has accessed the Justice League servers. The last panel shows Alfred in the Batcave communicating with Batman, but the devil Nezha stands behind him, hand on Alfred's shoulder.
So I really found the start of this issue unique with our characters being in quote unquote hell.
Yep.
Visually, that was unique. Dan Mora did some great work here. And that because of the creatures and the fire and everything he's going to draw, just adds another layer of uniqueness to what he's already, what he's done so far. Because you're still drawing, in previous issues, you're pretty much drawing the archetypal versions of these characters, right? The classic looking, all that stuff. So this gives another element. It adds another basic layer to show off his skill, which is immense. It was a cool pages. I like how Superman knew that it wasn't really hell, and because he basically said, like, I don't believe in hell. That was his kind of sort of reasoning to it.
Well, that was Batman's reasoning.
Oh,
he
Batman's
was like, you don't. He said you don't believe in hell.
Yeah. And then I like when he grabbed the Batarang and used the that was kind of cool. So I like those scenes. And what Mark Waid really has a handle on, in my opinion, is the banter and the relationship between Batman and Superman. He continues to show a sort of real understanding of those two characters. So they've confronted Faust. They sort of rescue, quote unquote, Billy Batson, who's later been, I guess, possessed.
Something like that.
I'm assuming, was it Neza or was it Felix Faust?
No, it was Nezha, because he says, there is only death to you and your kind at the hands of my soldiers.
Yeah, okay.
So says the devil Nezha.
Okay, yeah, so it was him. That's right, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also liked the use or the bringing in some of the other Justice Leaguers here. Basically through his sort of quote unquote soldiers, as you mentioned in the quote, he's taken a couple of Justice Leaguers off the board, and those are specifically Flash and Wonder Woman. And it's cool that he's using Mirror Master for the Flash and Dr. Alchemy for Wonder Woman. Two very Silver Age-esque villains, which this book really kind of lays in on the Silver Age kind of vibe. So that makes sense to use those two. Trapping the Flash in a mirror dimension, and basically turning Wonder Woman back to stone, or clay, I should say, are very, because trapping in a mirror essentially slows Flash down and to a standstill, and the idea of turning Wonder Woman into stone/clay is basically kind of reverting her back to her original classic form. So I like those modes of how are we going to take them out, and that's basically bringing them back to their pre-superheroic sort of states. Barry was just an average guy, really slow, like he couldn't, so he's trapped in a mirror dimension that he can't get out of. And then Wonder Woman going back. I just thought there was a lot of symmetry there that I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I liked Green Lantern showing up. Now, did you before you read the dialogue and kind of sort of got a sense of what was going on, when you saw the back of him, did you suspect that he may have turned, or did you think he was just going to help out? And
No, because like the first thing he says is like suspect. He's like, I've just gotten word that Nezha is no longer using villains as soldiers, and Batman says like, what does he say? He says, wait,
word
word
from
from
me.
where?
Yeah.
So even just him showing up out of nowhere and saying that was like pretty suspect.
Yeah. So really, the fact that he's now adding other heroes, Nezha is to his list of acolytes, if you will. Um, that brings an added layer of danger to the situation. And really, when you think about it, I mean, depending on how things shake out with Robin and Supergirl in back in feudal Japan, there, um, at present, where we leave Batman and Superman off in this issue, it's seemingly two heroes against the Rogues Gallery and fellow Justice Leaguers.
Yep.
So they're in a seemingly unwinnable situation, and
now Batman doesn't even have Alfred.
yeah, which we'll get to in a minute. But it is, yeah, it's kind of the idea that now he's using a mix of superheroes and supervillains at his disposal is kind of reminiscent. It's not the same by any means, but it's reminiscent of, remember the original Superman Batman run where Lex had put a bounty on both Batman and like on Superman, and at one point they had to face a bunch of villains and then some heroes. Except in that, the heroes were largely B and C listers that were being that agreed to work with Lex, whereas now they're seemingly facing fellow heavy hitters in the Justice League.
Yeah, I mean, Nezha has taken Flash and off the board. Supergirl and Robin are basically off the board because they have traveled back into the past. Green Lantern has flipped. So you're right. It's like our two heroes against the world right now.
Yeah, I agree. And so I thought that was really interesting. It sets up for an interesting dynamic. Obviously, they're going to come out on top because this is an ongoing series, and hey, they're not going to kill the main two protagonists, but it's cool nonetheless. The Japan stuff with Robin and Supergirl. While I was confused by the time travel last issue, I at least found that more unique and interesting than, I mean, their involvement here was just, let's talk to this ancient Justice League equivalent, like
Right.
the Justice League of feudal Japan, right? Essentially.
Well, they're like elemental warriors.
Yeah,
like
yeah, exactly, yeah, and they're all elemental based, yeah. So it wasn't bad. There wasn't much to it. It was just, let's make introductions. Basically, it's like, look, we're not, like, they have a little bit of a scuffle. It's not even really a full-on fight to the degree we've seen in other superhero books. And then they make up and they're like, well, what do you know about us? And then, I think Robin or Supergirl gives a little spiel, a little bio to each one of the, to know, hey, listen, we're telling the truth. You guys are very famous in the annals of history, and this is what we know about you. Please help us.
Right.
It's more of a roll call than anything substantial with that portion of the story. I don't know if you agree
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. You get a little bit of backstory on them,
Yeah,
and you get the sense that they are going to play a bigger role in this story as it unfolds.
yeah. I mean, the big the big reveal and the big moment of this book for me was um, um, the revelation. Because at one point, Batman calls Alfred when he realizes that the Green Lantern has been turned. He calls Alfred and he's like, Alfred, see if anything wonky's going on, and see if anybody's accessed the files on the Justice League members. And
Yep.
Alfred's looking and he's like, nothing seems to be out of the ordinary, sir. And then we get a shot of, you know, somebody behind Alfred, and we realize that it's Nezha, basically with his arm on Alfred. He's controlling Alfred. He's mind controlling Alfred. So that was a big reveal.
Well, obviously he knows who Batman is.
Yeah, and that's how he would know the weaknesses of
Right.
the other JLAers, because Batman being Batman,
Right. It's all in the Bat computer.
yeah, has a file on every Justice League member. Aside from the visual of Alfred being possessed with the hand and the guy giving the creepy, the creepy smile on his face, you know what was cool about that imagery there? The bit of the inside of the Batcave that we saw.
The Batman
Yeah,
'89 Batmobile
the
and
Batman
Batwing.
89 Batmobile and one of the suits. It's like, okay. I'm like, man, Dan Mora, I want to see more of that Batmobile now. Like, you teased me with it.
Yeah.
Now I want to see it. So I like the way this ended. Uh, I loved all the Batman Superman bits.
Sure.
Portion of the story. The only thing that was a little lacking for me was the Robin and Supergirl portion of the story. Slightly. But in saying that, I'm still really pumped to see where this goes and how it all plays out next issue.
Yeah, me too. I see what you're saying about the Supergirl and Robin thing, but it was cool to get a little bit of history on the G. Was that their name?
Yeah,
J.I.
J.I., yeah. That's how
Yep.
I pronounce it anyway. I don't know if that's right, but
Yeah, I think that's it. And you got a little bit of background on Nezha and their battle against him and his forces. Um, One thing I love about both this issue and the last issue is the imagery of Superman flying and just carrying Batman, and
yeah.
Supergirl doing the same thing with Robin.
Yeah.
Like, that just seems
The
so
parallels, yeah.
kind of humiliating for them.
Yeah, and you could say the funny thing is they don't really make mention of it, but there are moments in the art where you could see they're like, okay, can we get this over with? Like both Batman and Robin are not really fond of this carrying
Not their preferred mode of
aspect. Yeah,
transportation.
yeah, yeah. So that is kind of funny as well. But yeah, another good issue regardless. So unless there's anything else you want to mention.
No, I don't believe so. We've pretty well covered it.
All right, let's go ahead and rate this thing.
Okay, this one again, the artwork is stellar on all the characters. Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Supergirl. I really like the character designs and the action and the artwork. It all flows really well together.
Yeah, yeah.
Story, I liked. I didn't have the issues with this one that I had with the previous issue, so I give both the story and the artwork a 5.
The art is once again phenomenal for me. Those classic designs on on Batman and Superman, they just look so iconic.
And we didn't mention Batman has the yellow oval
Yeah,
with the
and the
Batman
blue.
'89 bat inside it.
Yeah, and the blue, and also the blue cape and cowl, the blue and
Yep.
gray color scheme on top of that. So it really is the best of both worlds in terms of Batman. And Superman just looks like classic, vintage Superman, if you will.
Well, but and he's muscular, but he's not grotesque.
Yeah, he's not. It's not like Ed McGuinness where it's overtly. And again, nothing against Ed McGuinness, but that's just a little too much. Like, I don't need Superman to look like Triple H.
No,
because he's Superman, and
he's an alien. He has super strength. He doesn't need super muscles.
And for that matter, I don't even need Batman to look like Triple H, because it for me, when he's a little bit leaner, and it sells to me that Batman is able to move with some extra speed and agility.
Yep.
As opposed to having this hulking behemoth. So I like the way they're drawn in that respect. But yeah, everybody looks good. My favorite pages were probably the stuff in Hell, because Dan Mora got to draw some unique imagery, and then the Batcave pages were awesome as well. And the story, even though I wasn't, really all too, moved or keen on the Robin and Supergirl, meet and greet segment, I still really enjoyed the story overall. So it's a 4.5 for the story and a 5 for the art. And that's where I am with issue 3 of Batman Superman World's Finest. We'll be back, of course, with reviews for issue 4 when that drops, and so many other DC comics that we're going to review. We're going to finish off Batman 89 when issue 6 arrives. It still hasn't arrived yet. We'll do 5 and 6 together. I think we haven't done 5 yet, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll do the last 2 together, and there'll be plenty of more DC content coming your way. But until next time, if you want to talk DC with me and Chris, you can on social media. Chris, where do they find you?
On Twitter, it's my name, at Chris N. Harrelson. And on Facebook, I'll be in the group chat when Adam posts about this episode. Just comment there.
Indeed. And if you want to find me, it's at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. The show itself has its own Twitter page, which is at MMNPDC. We have a Facebook group, which is listed somewhere in the description, but I'll click that, and I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there if you so choose. But until next time, remember that Batman and Superman are the world's finest forever. From the first time Supergirl and Superman take Batman and Robin flying to the last. So long, everybody.
Bye.